So here's our agenda for today. Usually we do have I try to have a guest speaker for about the first 30 minutes of the meeting, and then I'll share legislative and community updates, and then we talk story after that about your concerns and issues. But the exception, of course, is the first community meeting of the session and the last, where I do a legislative wrap-up, which is what this meeting is all about today. So we may not get time to do any Q&A at the end, and if we don't, then please submit your folks online, or folks here can submit their issues or concerns either in an email or call the office, and we'll take care of it. All right, and so of course I'd like to introduce my community liaison, Johnny Pomerantz, who's been with us since last August and online, running at things from the beach. Oh, there she is Meg Turner. She's been with me since 2014. She's my office manager, and I'm blessed to have these two very dedicated women on my staff. So let's get started. We'll jump right into the 2023 legislative wrap-up, and then we'll go over some community updates. So this was my 7th year as the chair of the Senate Ag and Environment Committee. And so here's a brief rundown of what happened during the 2023 session. There were a total of 3,132 bills that were introduced in both the House and Senate, 1,618 in the Senate, 1,514 in the House. And that's actually over 600 bills more than last year's session in 2022. So typically there's around 2,500 or 3,000 bills that are introduced every session, and usually about 10% actually make it into law. So as of May 4th, it's the latest update we could get, 274 bills have passed the House and Senate, or both chambers, as we refer to them as chambers, and 29 of those had become law. So that means that the remaining 245 bills, the governor has until June 26th to notify the legislature of his intent to veto any bills. And then he has until July 11th to officially deliver the veto. So if he doesn't meet those two deadlines, then it's over. So you may have forgotten in your 7th grade civics class that he's got 3 choices. He can either sign the bill into law. If he doesn't sign the bill into law, it automatically becomes law. That's the 2nd choice. And the 3rd is he can veto. And if he chooses to veto, then the Senate and the House has to override his veto with a 2/3 majority. Okay. And so here we have the Senate leadership. And the reason I want to just introduce you to these guys, because they play a role in this. So going back to these 1,618 bills that were introduced in the Senate leadership, they look at all of these bills. This is what happens, just to give you an idea, at the beginning of session, and they assign them to committees for hearings, and where the general public is invited to either testify in person or online. And I just wanted to make sure you're understanding that this is the public's opportunity to get involved in the process, and not just testify, but when you go online, for example, if you're going to testify online, the legislators, you usually get a couple of minutes. There's a time limit, of course, but sometimes the legislators may ask you questions about your testimony, and you get an opportunity to ask questions, right? So I like this idea that we're doing these in person and hybrid, because you don't have to drive down to the Capitol and pay for parking, as well as our folks in the neighbor islands. They can testify online. So of those 1,618 Senate bills, 255 of them fell under AEN, my committee, Agriculture Environment Committee, my purview. And my committee covers agriculture, aquaculture, population, environmental quality control and protection, including litter control, recycling, wastewater treatment, endangered species, invasive species, and hazardous waste. So any of those bills that have to do with that, they come to my committee. But some of those 255 bills that were referred to AEN, sometimes they're not referred just to AEN, right? Sometimes it will be AEN and other committees. And let me give you an example. If the referral is AEN, comma, WHAM, that's Ways and Means Committee, that means that the bill has to pass out of my committee, and then it goes to the Ways and Means Committee. And if it passes there, then it goes to the whole Senate, and then we vote on it. All right. That's if it says AEN / WHAM, that means it's a joint hearing. So both committees meet together, and then it has to pass out of those both committees. So sometimes you may have AEN, comma, W2L, water, land, comma, WHAM. So that means you would have to pass AEN, then it goes to the Water Land Committee, it's got to pass out of that committee, and then it goes to the WHAM committee, and it's got to pass out of that committee. So just to give you an idea of how what happens. So once the referrals are made by the Senate leadership, then the committee chairs, we start scheduling the hearings for the bills. And as I said, once the bills pass the final committee in each chamber, then there's a floor vote in the Senate, 25, in the House, 51. So you need the majority of 13 in the Senate, 26 in the House for it to pass before it moves on. And then the Senate bills that pass, they go to the House bills, they come over to the Senate, and then the process begins again. We have committee hearings, some bills die, others get amended and move forward. And then finally, the bills come back to the original chamber. And so of those 255 AEN bills that we started off with, 55 actually made it to conference committee. And conference committee is made up of the House members and Senate members, 3 or 4 from each House. And we get together and we try to work out the details, any questions, any tweaks that we want to make. And then after conference committee is when the full, the House will vote on it, the Senate will vote on it, and then possibly it becomes a law, possibly it dies. So that conference committee is the last big hurdle before those bills go to the chamber floor for the final vote, and then they're sent to the governor, those that survive. So the fast-paced, yes, Joe.
Is it not the case that a lot of good bills die in the country?
Yes, good question, Joe. A lot of good bills die. And that's why I learned at the very beginning. I've been in the Senate since 2006. Sometimes it takes a few years. You know, you can't expect a good bill. You know, I mean, I've had bill, oh, this is, you know, you get everybody involved and they're testifying and virtually nobody testifying against it. And then I get a call, guess what? Your bill died. What you did all, so you just, one of the things I've learned, patience and determination, right? Okay. We'll get the stakeholders together during the interim, during this time before next January. We talk story. Okay, well, how about this? What happened? Okay, let's go talk to these guys. Let's, you know, and see if we can work it out. And so, yeah, so that's the, you know, it's a super dynamic process, you know, where the bills live or die and seemingly with no advance warning. Now, it's also important to note that the money bills, those that have an appropriation, they cannot be voted on in the conference committee until you have the money committee's approval. So we're sitting there, House guys are sitting here, Senate guys are here. Okay, you got FINA's finance in the House, WHAM is money committee. We got FIN approval yet? Sorry, no. WHAM, no, sorry. So you got a deadline. This is the last day. It's like 6 p.m. The deadline's happening, right? And yet it's 5:59, and literally we've gotten notice 1 minute before the deadline. Okay, damn, hit the gavel, and then we made it. So that's the kind of dynamic I'm talking about. And so out of the 55 AEN bills, there were 25 from the Senate and 30 from the House that made it to conference. Only 20, that was 11 Senate bills and 9 House bills, passed final reading in the House and the Senate, and they have been transmitted to the governor. And so now the waiting game is, I told you what his deadlines are. And so we'll see what happens. And so what I'd like to do now is to talk about the top 10 priority bills, the successes and the failures, you know, so.
The bad and the ugly.
Funny you should say that. That's an old Clint Eastwood movie, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah. So many times, as we were saying, it's hard to determine ultimately why bills die. It could be the lack of agreement between the House and the Senate. Could be the money chairs. They don't approve the funding. They want to put the funding someplace else. It could be the leadership. They're feeling, not a priority. To wait till next year. So, and sometimes you just run out of time. So here they are, number one. So we'll start off with the good. And that was SB 652, feral chickens and pigs. And actually, this is not just good, this is good and bad. I introduced this bill on behalf of the Hawaii Cattlemen Company to help eradicate the two-line spittlebug. And this is an invasive pest that's been attacking the key grasses, fields of grasses used by the livestock ranching industry. So I've introduced bills to do this, to combat this particular critter for several sessions. And I thought we're going to get it done this year. And then at the last minute, Ways and Means Committee, they removed the funding for the two-line spittlebug. So you can imagine.
Did they give a reason?
No.
Not enough.
Well, listen, let me finish the story on this bill because actually, technically the bill didn't pass, but what happened was they put $5 million into establishing a 5-year pilot program to mitigate and control feral chickens and pigs. And this is a huge growing problem throughout the state that many of us know about too well. I live in Kalaeloa. We've been living in Kalaeloa since 2004. That's 19 years. Over the years, at one point, we had 13 feral chickens and about 8 feral cats. We finally adopted 4 of the feral cats that we're taking care of. But we also have an organic garden. And when the chickens start going after the garden,
Oh, Senator, Senator, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Can you unmute yourself? You had a little technical glitch.
all right.
Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. And so,
We missed your story.
oh, really? That was a long time ago. Sorry. So anyway, so the pilot, you get the traps, they bring out the traps, you use them. They will pick up the traps with the chickens in them, take care of the chickens and bring back if you want those traps back. So, and what they want to do is, they have to, in the bill, it's written that it's got a interim and a final report. Interim report is due in 2026. The final report is in 2028, would be submitted to the ledge with the recommendations on the findings of the pilot program. So we get a lot of input from the public about feral chickens, by the way. So, and feral pigs, especially on the Big Island on feral pigs. So again, here's the money committee saying, you know what? Yeah, two-line spittlebugs, it's a problem, but this is a bigger problem, and that's what happens. Okay, so will I be reintroducing the two-line spittlebug? You bet, next year. And you can also rest assured that the Cattlemen Council, they were very disappointed, but again, we'll see what happens next year. Number 2, Hawaii Ant Lab. Have you ever been bitten by a little fire ant? Okay. So their bite can be irritating, burning sensation with welts and marks on your skin. And also the we'll call them LFAs, little fire ants. The bites have been correlated with blindness in cats and dogs, which of course is causing concern among our pet owners and other residents. And so they were first found here in Hawaii in 1999, and now they're on the Big Island, Oahu, Maui, and Kauai. There are 30 to 40 infested locations here on Oahu alone. I know they had a big infestation in Mililani and also in Waimanalo that they took care of, totally eradicated them. But they do have a tendency to come back. So anyway, I was 2021, I visited several farms on Hawaii Island with the folks who were having problems over there. I also went to the Hawaii Ant Lab. We have a Hawaii Ant Lab, which was started in 2008 by a guy from New Zealand, Casper Vanderwoud. He's their research manager at the Hawaii Ant Lab. And so then I got to hear firsthand about how these little fire ants are affecting the agricultural farming community. A lot of times, one of the major complaints are the guys that are the fruit pickers, right? They're out picking the mac nuts or pie or whatever, and these little fire ants start swarming. They get on you, and then I ain't going to work anymore. Sorry, boss, until you take care of this. So major, yeah. So this particular bill, it appropriates $500,000 for this year, fiscal 23, to support the Hawaii Ant Lab. And they've been getting their funding from grants from some from the state and some from the feds, but they've definitely had problems as far as staffing. Next is, let's see. Number 3, Group Gap Food Safety Training, SB 1588. So I wasn't aware of this. Approximately 50 million people in the world get sick from foodborne diseases, and 3,000 people die. And so back in 2011, the FDA, they created the Food and Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA, to help prevent all this. And then in 2015, the USDA, they came up with what's called Group GAP. GAP stands for Good Agricultural Practices. So this program here, it helps small farmers train and become certified in GAP to promote food safety. And the Hawaii Group GAP, it's the only comprehensive farm food safety training program in the state that results in actual what's called Group GAP certification. And so last session, I had introduced the Senate Bill 2960, which became Act 136, requiring the Department of Ag to partner with the ag community to establish a food safety certification program. And so this bill appropriates $1 million to the Department of Ag to establish and implement that Group GAP safety program. All right, let's see here. Where am I?
Produce.
Audio's lost again.
Here. Meg, what's going on?
So somebody, it keeps unmuting themselves, and so it's causing some background.
Oh, okay.
And then,
Folks that are listening online, don't unmute yourself, please, because it messes up. Okay. So number 4, hemp producers. HB 1359 found out that in 2016, the hemp industry was worth $400 million. And they're predicting $1.5 billion by 2020. I don't know if they not just Hawaii. So you can check out my hemp aloha shirt that I've got on today. It's just one of over 50,000 uses for this amazing plant. And you talk about that was a gift. Yeah. You can get them online now, though. Yeah, made locally. Yeah. Talk about an opportunity to boost our economy. Growing and selling hemp products with the Hawaii label, the Hawaii branding, right? So, but a reminder, it was December 14th, 1999. You heard that right, 1999, when Governor Cayetano proclaimed Industrial Hemp Day. And then since we were the first state to plant hemp since World War II, it was used a whole bunch in World War II. So 1999, Industrial Hemp Day in Hawaii. And then government fell asleep for about 15 years, as government tends to do sometimes. And so at the request of a dear friend of mine, I introduced some legislation. It passed in 2014. Other bills have passed along the way since then. And I was thinking, yeah, okay, we're on our way here. Then the pandemic came, and then everything came to a complete standstill in 2020 with many unhempy hemp farmers. And 2023 started, and now things are starting to move again. We actually had 5 hemp bills this session that actually made it to the Senate floor for final readings. But unfortunately, They were recommitted to the House by the House at the last minute, which means they're dead. One bill survived. That's this one here, HB 1359. And it implements a much needed hemp task force, which is under the purview of the Department of Ag. And what they'll be doing is assessing the whole viability of hemp farming and the production statewide. Everybody's just kind of, the last time I checked, there were 91 certified hemp farmers. You got to get a license to do this since it's still, since cannabis is still illegal on the federal side. So they consider hemp, because it does have THC in it, they still consider it. You have to get certified and everything. Okay, so this bill, it also repeals the duplicate regulations from the federal and the state. Okay, so they don't have to have, the farmers don't have to hassle with that. Requires transparency and labeling. It provides funding for the Department of Ag to hire a hemp consultant. Provides money for the Department of Health to hire a toxicologist, and also extends the state's hemp processor law through 2020. So this is a comprehensive bill that I was happy to see pass. And then we have number 5, carbon sequestration pilot program, SB 419. During my time as the energy environment chair, we passed a bill in 2015, which you might recall, which made Hawaii a leader in committing to 100% renewable energy, clean renewable energy by 2045. I checked, we're about at 29% now as of 2022, which we're on target to reach that goal. We got 22 years left. So to meet this commitment, the state, we have to make investments to reduce and mitigate carbon dioxide and methane emissions. So SB 419, it provides a pilot program that we established in 2022. When the bill I introduced, it was SB 3225 that passed into law as Act 185. And the goal is to provide incentives for farmers and foresters to manage their lands in ways that help sequester carbon emissions. The problem with that bill, when it passed, there was no funding. So this is the bill that provides the funding. So now they can be compensated, our farmers and our foresters can be compensated. And then there are incentives to small farmers, ranchers, foresters, and landowners and lessees for taking measures to help Hawaii decrease our carbon and methane emissions. So that's the good. You ready for the bad and the ugly?
How can they sequester carbon? CO2?
Well, that's what the forest and the, the farming does. That's what,
I'm not aware of any mechanisms for.
that's what they
farmers
do.
to do it.
Yeah. And that's what the whole program is going to do.
It turns into the soil.
Yeah.
Absorb all the carbon.
Yeah.
Stays.
Yeah, right. All right, so bills that failed. First one, sustainable food systems, HB 308. Very disappointed that this did not pass. You know, we keep complaining about how we import 85 to 90% of our food, and it costs us $3 billion a year, and we've got over close to $1 million of ag land. Why aren't we using that? And this bill is going to do something about it. And what this bill says, you got to have a plan. You can't just keep talking about it. And so this bill would have established a sustainable food systems working group within the Department of Ag. And so the bill actually defines a sustainable food system as one where producers, well, I'm talking about the farmers and the ranchers, right? And the fishers, where retailers, members of the community, non-governmental organizations, government agencies, they partner together and they create a vibrant and resilient local food economy that enhances and sustains the environmental, economic, and social health of the community.
Sounds great.
It sounds great. Yeah, thank you, Joe. But the main thing is it gets everybody together to talk story, right? So let's decide on this. Instead of just talking about it, let's do something and come up with the plan.
2 years.
Yeah. Also, so it required the working group to submit a plan. Also appropriated funds to for a number of sustainability specialist positions that would be employed by the Department of Ag. And there are about 25 members of the working group. This included farmers, ranchers, fishers, UH, Department of Health, OHA, we get the Hawaiian version in there, get the input from the Hawaiians, even the HTA, Tourism Agency, everybody involved, food bank, everybody involved coming up with the plan. And so the plan was going to focus on these things: food as a human right and healthy food for all, social equity and food justice, food system resilience, agriculture and food system sustainability, food at the center of a circular economy, sustainable education, workforce development, and fair labor, and good food governance. And then, so anyway, as I said earlier, back to the drawing board. You'll see this bill again next year. And again, it's so disappointing when you're working with so many people who are putting in, volunteering their time, the stakeholders who are from all these different groups. Yes, this is it. And then all of a sudden they call up, they email. And many times I say, I really can't tell you. But what I can tell you, we're coming back next year. We'll do it next year. Number 2, the Bucks. And this is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP incentives in HB 1248. So this was this bill would have appropriated funds to the Department of Ag for the Bucks program. And it's formally called the Hawaii Healthy Food Incentive Program, which provides matching funds to SNAP recipients. And it was created to address the food insecurity and promote healthier eating habits among low-income individuals and families. So it provides matching funds. So when you go to the farmer's market, you get matching funds to buy your fresh fruits and veggies, right? And so Triple Win, it supports local farmers, it keeps dollars in our local economy, and also it helps low-income families receive, doubling their purchasing power for healthy Hawaii-grown produce. This bill would have appropriated $3 million to continue the administration of the program. There's all kinds of federal matching money to help out as well. Sorry, didn't make the grade, didn't pass. So, and this one made it all the way to the final hearing and conference, and we did not get the WAM-FIN, the Money Committee's release, and so sadly it died.
So that program's canceled?
No, it's actually, it goes on till December 31st, and then we'll see what happens. There's still some federal money, but the state portion is no funding for the next fiscal year. Yeah. Okay, number 3, HB 1396, crappy one. Cesspools, yeah. You may have seen my quote in the Civil Beat about this particular one. We have more cesspools per capita, 88,000 in the state, than any state in the country. We were the last state in the country to ban cesspools. And basically, cesspool is a hole in the ground where you dump your stuff. And
If we banned them, why we have eating pets?
Yes, sir.
here comes,
Because they're already there.
they're already there, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but
There's over 11,000 cesspools on Oahu alone, many on the North Shore, windward side, that have no sewers, plenty on Eva side. I'm still trying to get the number, how many we have left in our Senate district here, but listen to this. Cesspools put 3 million gallons, 53 million gallons of raw sewage into our state's groundwater every single day. Think about that the next time you're taking a swim. Yeah, every single day. And from our groundwater, we get 90% of our drinking water. So they're antiquated, they're outdated. And so we passed a bill over 6 years ago. Again, we got environmental groups, government official, concerned citizens. We passed 3 new laws that protected our water quality. In Act 120 banned the construction of new cesspools. Act 125 mandated the conversion of cesspools, the existing ones, by 2050. 2050, okay? And it also created, Act 132, created the Cesspool Conversion Working Group. Okay, so the working group, they're meeting. I'm getting input from them. They came up, and so we had a few cesspool bills that were introduced. And this one in particular got very close to passing. It would have conducted public outreach to educate homeowners on regarding the state cesspool situation, among other things. It also it made it to conference committee, and you guessed it, it did not have the money committee's approval, and therefore it died. So as I said, really crappy situation. And so, but again, we will come back next year with this one as well as and reintroduce it.
We'll see some action by 2049.
Yeah, hopefully you're right. And then number 4, the green fee. SB 304. And this establishes a visitor impact fee. I'm sure you've seen this on the news within the Department of Land and Natural Resources, or DLNR. And the latest version that they came up with, there were many versions that were being considered, would be collecting a fee from visitors for a license to visit a state park, a forest, a hiking trail, or other state natural areas. And this would require a report to the legislature on a strategic plan and timetable for objectives and implementation of this visitor impact fee program. Talk about a no-brainer. 10 million tourists a year, they all enjoy and our natural beauties here. Why shouldn't they be helping pay, right? So yeah, yes, there were 8 green fee bills introduced this session, and SB 304 was the only one to pass out of both the House and the Senate, made it to conference, and then you guessed it, no wham fin, no money committee release, therefore dead.
Why were there 8?
Because just different aspects, different ideas. One was to charge every single person that comes through pays $50. Problem with that is there's some issues we heard from the attorneys with the Commerce Clause. You can't do that, is what the Attorney General was saying. Would not include the residents. So we're just talking about visitors. You would have to start charging the residents. So yeah. Okay, so then the next one is PFAS. You probably heard of PFAS, or forever chemicals. The scientific name is perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl. And these are products that resist heat, oil, stains, grease, and water. There are all kinds of these coatings and various products. They are called forever chemicals because they don't go away. And they've been a lot in the news lately. They've been around since the 1940s in carpets, clothing, furniture, fabric, paper packaging for food and cookware. And it's meant to be waterproof, stain resistant or non-stick. And also firefighters use it in their foam and other industrial uses. They started showing up. They were detected close by in the Kunia village in their water supply. They've been just using bottled water for the last 6 months or so. Also on Red Hill, you may have seen there was a spill. Part of that jet fuel spill was about 1,300 gallons of this PFAS firefighting foam. It's called aqueous film forming foam that contains PFAS. It spilled from a pipe this past November. Also, Kaamilo Wells Station in Aiea, some of their wells tested positive for PFAS. And so this is a big issue. It's kind of like just scientists are just finding out about it. And so we passed this bill in last year, HB 1644, Act 152, which banned the manufacture, sale, or distribution of PFAS in wraps, liners, plates, food boats, and pizza boxes that contain PFAS, and prohibited the manufacture, sale, distribution, and use of Class B firefighting foams. That was last year. So this one took it farther and banned the manufacture, sale, or distribution in food packaging, food service, where cosmetics, personal use care products that contain these forever chemicals. So we had agreement in the House, Senate, and made it to conference, but in this one, we did not have the House Finance Committee's approval, so the bill died. Okay, so there you have it. That's the wrap up of the the 2023 session. The good, bad, and ugly. A lot of ugly. Yeah.
Depressing to hear about all the good things that died.
Yeah, it is. But again, okay, that's just part of the way things happen. You know, we'll look at them next year. So let's go into the community updates from our community liaison who's prepared the slideshow today. We'll start off with East Kapolei Elementary School. You'll see it over there on the right. It'll be located above Kahimohala Medical Center between Farrington Highway and Queen Liliuokalani Freeway. The bid is anticipated for fall of 2024, and construction is scheduled to begin in 2025. And they want to open for the school year 2027. Okay, and then next is East Kapolei High School. And you'll see it right there on the left side, located between Farrington Highway and the freeway. And here's the nice thing, and I just found out about this recently, because the budget, you know, it's one of the last things that happens, and it's very complicated. But I just found out that we got $15 million for our new high school, which is fantastic. And that's for design and construction, and for ground and site improvement and equipment. And so the conceptual design phase is complete now. The construction is currently on hold. They're trying to decide whether it's going to be continuing under the Department of Education or move over to SFA, which is the School Facilities Authority. It's this new, branch.
Is that over by UH West?
Yeah, it's across. UH West is down here, and there's Farrington Highway. I think that's Kualaka'i Parkway right there.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's, DLNR is going to be over there, and then that's where the high school is going to be. I think it's, do you remember that? It's 45 acres or around that, yeah. Okay, and then CIP funding, we had, we got, you probably also saw in the news that Lieutenant Governor, one of her main projects is statewide pre-kindergarten access. So 2 schools in our community were awarded funding, $4 million to Ho'okele Elementary School right across the street, which will add an additional 40 seats for our pre-kindergarten keiki. And then Maukalani up the hill and Makakilo, they'll get $2 million for 20 seats. And then we have the Kailua revitalization, right? Yay, as a resident, as I mentioned, for 19 years, I was very happy to hear this. That $6 million is coming to modernize the power grid, supplying Kailua, and they'll work in partnership, of course, with Hawaiian Electric. We have frequent power outages, and believe me, it's a bummer. And I've actually thought about going out and spending $500 on a generator, but it's just so glad they're finally going to work on fixing the problem. Then we have the Daniel Keakaka State Vets Home across from Walmart, nearly 90,000 square feet, primary care, mental health, audiology, physical and occupational therapy, 120 large private rooms with a private bathroom, each with a private bathroom. They're on target it's on target. You can see it as you drive by every day. January 2024. So just around about 6 months away. And the clinic is scheduled, that's construction to be finished in January, with the clinic to open later in 2024. And then we have the Aloha VA Clinic, also known as the Advanced Leeward Outpatient Healthcare Access. That's what the acronym stands for, Aloha. And that, of course, is down there on Roosevelt at Kamakila, right behind Costco. Primary care, mental health care. There's coming along. I drive by there frequently. And this, what else? X-rays, labs, diagnostic, pharmacy, specialty care for our 87,000 veterans on Oahu. Work is,
Federally funded,
huh?
yeah, federally funded.
Yes, mostly Fed funded, yes. I'm not sure what the state kicked in here. Nearing completion of the roads that are surrounding there. And let's see, it looks like Barbers Point Elementary, which is just down the road, will continue to be accessible. And the grand opening is expected in mid-2024. And then slide 15 is the project is Kaulu by Gentry Homes. And this is between Barbers Point Elementary and Costco. This is 256 multifamily homes total, and they're working on permits for the 133 single-family homes. It's integrated affordable workforce housing. They'll have 2 reserve units each with more affordable rates. Hopes are that the first homes will be completed this year, with the plan being to close home sales in the early fall of 2023. Yeah. And then next is the Hawaiian Humane Society, which I mentioned, grand opening today. And so starts at 10:30 for those of you who can make it. 5-acre property that D.R. Horton gifted to the Hawaiian Humane Society. It's on 27,000 square feet. And what else? It's at Fort Weaver and Old Fort Weaver Road. $28 million is what it's costing them to build this facility. It's on 5.5 acres. They'll have a 2-story main building that will offer full range of core services, including adoptions, animal admissions, vet care, and spay and neuter services. There'll be 3 dog pavilions, 2 cat pavilions, a small animal pavilion, and 2 gazebos, among other features, and a community dog park. And I don't know if you know this, but it's estimated that 60% of the West Oahu residents have pets. And so this is going to be save you that drive to Mo'ili'ili, right? So really good thing. And then Ho'omaka Marketplace. This is located there at the corner of Kapolei Parkway and Kolokai Parkway under instruction. And you'll see the Hele gas station that's there and the convenience store they're planning to open next month or in early July. And then as far as our roadways, you're recurring. We laugh, but we should cry. Makakilo Drive Extension. I did get notice from Frank Genadio. He's on the OMPO, the Oahu Metropolitan Policy Board. And he mentioned that they did meet. I heard from him May 8th. They met end of April with the mayor and the managing director, as well as the DTS, the Department of Transportation Services deputy director. And so they are, as far as completion, it's the fact that it's in and out of it's called TIPS. TIP is the Transportation Improvement Program. It's been in and out of that listing for years. And so the reinstatement has to come from the OMPO Policy Board or possibly through the Honolulu City Council. So the vibe that Frank got was very positive from the mayor, but nothing concrete in terms of, yeah. And then, yeah, so that's it. And then we do have a little time for Q&A. The next, I'll let you know when our next June meeting is. And there's all my contact information there. And yeah, we have a little bit of time for Q&A. Anything on your mind in terms of?
Several meetings ago, we had a gentleman talking about the Makakilo Drive extension.
Yeah.
And he said, well, it's the same situation on the West Coast. You can't get out of there.
Yeah.
But I should have said, look, if I lived in Nanakuli and there was a problem, I could go north, I could go south, or I could go east to get away from it. Makakilo Drive, sounds like one way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's,
Well, if you lived in Nanakuli, you couldn't go west, right?
True, I
Right.
didn't say west, I said
Okay.
north, south and east.
Okay, right, gotcha. Yeah. How'd you go north?
Drive up the coast. I did it toward the Union Point.
Cayena Point?
That's not PHA.
That's west. Cayena Point's west, and there's a dead end.
Yeah.
Because the
But-
reason I was on the city council, so I
you
heard
know,
this.
If there was like a big accident.
Yeah, of course, yes, yeah.
drive
could go over
away
the,
from it, drive
yeah,
around it,
Yeah,
Not here.
that's true. Yeah. And I've been interested, I've been up there several times. I took our staff up there to, just to, so they could visualize and see how close because when you look down from the point up there and you can see, the freeway, and you can also see, where the connecting point would actually be. But it dead ends down there. But the folks that live in that section where it dead ends, I haven't really heard from them. Would they like that? Because you're talking about increasing the traffic significantly. If you open up that, is that a problem? But I think it's a good thing if it was going to be an issue or for them that I would have already heard from them. Maybe they're thinking, pipe dream is never going to happen, so I don't need to bother the senator or whatever. But I don't know.
It gets down to a 2-lane road down toward the end.
Exactly.
So that would have to be wide.
Exactly. Yeah. But yes, ma'am.
I'd like to mention just 3 things. First of all, the El Nino is coming back, so that means out there relief of nothing of the threats for about 4 years. We're once again looking at the real possibility of a hurricane hitting out of the Oahu. I talked a couple of years ago.
Excuse me, ma'am, would you mind coming up here because so we could get the
Yeah,
people online
that
are
would be
saying
better.
they can't hear
And
you.
then boss, you'll have to mute.
I'll have to mute.
Mhm.
Okay.
Would you start off by?
Yes, my name is Svea Breckberg, Makakilo. I've been a hurricane protection advocate since 2006. We've had 4 years of basically nothing happening in terms of a threat. El Nino is now coming back this fall, so we have to worry once again about a hurricane hitting Oahu. Basically, I have calculated that we'll have thousands of people die if we get hit by a Cat 3 or higher hurricane. There's no place for people to safely go unless they live in a concrete building or who have friends who live in a concrete building. I just wanted to mention that every time we build a new school, and we've got a couple of them coming up in the next few years in this area, the construction of the schools, unfortunately, is deteriorated in terms of safety over the years rather than getting more secure. I talked a couple of years ago with the engineer who was working on the new high school for this area, and they had no clue what kind of Cat 1, 2 category they might have in terms of a possible gymnasium. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows they better make friends with someone who lives in a concrete building, because sooner or later they're going to need that kind of shelter if they want to survive. If they haven't already done something to make their home more secure in terms of hurricane clips, they seriously need to do that. That's item number 1. Number 2, I'm very concerned about, for this side of the island, what they're going to do by city and county on the bus situation in terms of changing it, because they're going to be very concerned about cutting back on the basic express buses that we have from the leeward side to downtown, trying to channel people to take the rail instead, which is, sad to say, going to be a worse commute than we currently have with the express buses. The third thing I wanted to bring up is the fact that there's been a deterioration, sad to say, in terms of our health situation. There's a lot of action being taken by top executives at Queens and other places in terms of making it much harder for people to schedule appointments. They're cutting back on your access to be able to simply call your doctor's office and schedule appointments. They're centralizing the appointment scheduling and making it much more complicated, time consuming to get those appointments. So I hope you lobby the top executives of our healthcare system, including what you've read about with HMSA and the executive $100,000 premium payments that they gave themselves while they were cutting back the people who actually help us the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, so thank you very much for coming. Go ahead.
I was listening to Hawaii Public Radio.
Mhm.
They said that that coal-fired plant did not belong to HECO.
Right.
Okay, last time I thought it did.
No.
And that the owners are putting in solar.
Yeah, that's what I understand. Yeah, yeah, I don't know the details.
Okay, I was gonna ask if there was molten salt.
Yeah, we'll
That would
check.
Give you power into the nighttime.
Right.
And then no one said anything about modular nuclear. Good.
Not yet. Okay, I'm off to the Hawaiian Humane Society. So thank you very much for coming, everybody. Aloha for all you online. See you next time.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank-